DLDSR is one of those things I've attempted to use quite a few times, especially when I was at 1440p with my 5080 and I was trying to feel out 4K to see if there was something I really wanted to switch to. Eventually, I have switched to 4K, but I've been getting requests to explore DLDSR more in depth, try to do some sort of visual comparison, see what we can see, and all of that. In my experience, the visual difference was lackluster, noticeably. It was the noticeable aspects of it were not. It was not worth the performance hit. You could enable DLSS, and that's when it gets interesting, to me at least. But just DLDSR, where you're running at a higher resolution and downscaling in most modern titles, is just a waste of performance when you could just use DLSS. But it gets way more interesting when you are using DLDSR plus DLSS in order to get better than your native resolution's DLAA in visual fidelity while also getting better performance than your DLAA, at least from what I was seeing. We'll get into that. So let's switch over here. This is some comparisons I've done. I know the format is shamelessly ripping off Daniel Owen. I'm sorry. It was just like the first thing that came to mind, so we're going to do it that way. But yeah, look here. So here we have 1080p DLAA. This is kind of just our baseline, right? This is what we'll be looking at, our 1080p DLAA and then our 1080p quality. Our quality is getting quite a bit of performance, but you can see if we go over here, right here, where you can see there's just far more detail in some places. Let's look here. Now, what you'll notice is that the characters are always different, which is funny. The characters in every run is different. But if you look at these lights here, I wonder if you can see my mouse cursor. But if you look at these lights here, you'll see how in the DLSS image, DLSS quality at 1080p, we are losing a ton of detail on those lights back there. That is like, what even is that? But here you can tell that they're like a grid. And here it's just totally a jumbled mess. And then also things like, I mean, the reconstruction of this exit sign's pretty darn good. Here where you have this like little bit of a mesh, and then you have the like a wire mesh before there's some lighting behind it. It kind of loses a lot of its detail on the DLSS image. But yeah, that's just some things you notice is just the overall somewhat loss of detail. Sometimes it's more obvious than others, so that's something you have to look into. But yeah, as we go through this, there's not too much of a visual difference between DLAA and DLSS quality generally, but there's a lot of instances where there could be instability, where there's a slight loss in visual quality. Let's see, up here, oftentimes there can be differences, like especially on this wire. If we go back just a little bit here, see that wire there, how in the DLSS quality image, you see it's a little more blurry, and on this one, it's a little bit sharper. And that's the big thing, is that you're going to see more blur in the finer elements with DLSS than with DLAA. And the idea is with DLDSR that you're rendering the entire thing at a higher resolution and then downscaling it. It's basically acting as super sampling, because that's what it is. It's deep learning. What is it? DLDSR. It's deep learning dynamic super resolution. It's an upgraded version of the original dynamic super resolution, which was just less efficient. You'd lose way more. You'd lose frames. It was less accurate. It was also just, it didn't look as good. So DLDSR is a big upgrade. Anyway, so here we get to the first like actual test of DLDSR versus DLAA. And the first thing I notice in general is, look at this floor here. You see where there's spots here on the floor, these dots here. This is rendering at 1.78 times the 1080p resolution, and then also running DLSS using DLAA. So it's kind of acting like an anti-aliasing on top of that. But anyway, look here. Down here on the floor, you see these dots on the floor. You can more clearly make out those dots as you go back and forth than over here. So like over here, you can see these dots pretty well right by this line. And then over here, they kind of just turn into mush. So there is a definite visual upgrade. Then over here, yeah, there's the same thing with the grates here. I believe it might be a little clearer on the DLAA side, but only minimally. right? So a lot of the times it hardly changes anything. But the floor pattern here was something I immediately noticed when I was looking at these. Oh, this is way different. Okay, so look here at you remember that same place we were looking with the quality mode? You can look up here, and that mesh, that is way sharper. You can definitely make out more here of that fence, of the past the mesh there. So that is way different. Also, this is interesting because it almost seems like whatever's happening here, it's just different, which is weird. It's almost like these lights here, they're in a more of a grid here, but here they're tighter. I don't know what's up with those lights. That is really weird. Then apart from that, these lights looking a little sharper around their edges. We also see around here, just overall sharpness is just a little bit sharper, right? The sharpness around the 18 plus sign here is sharper. The things around the lights are sharper. Yeah, so general sharpness is just better. Look at that. Just way sharper. Although I will say the smoke is different in both, but I don't believe that's making the difference here when it comes to sharpness. I'm not sure how well this is going to appear on your guys' side, but oh yeah, look at the graffiti on the bar here. It's significantly sharper here versus here. It's noticeably sharper, right? Which means it's doing a good job. It's definitely improving the look. If we go out here, going outside, and I want to look at this reflection real quick at the floor, because this is also, real quick, this is path tracing. All right, we got up here. You see, this is interesting though. Look at the reflection there. Maybe it's just the frame we landed on, but I don't know. That was interesting. Hold up, we were at DLDSR. For some reason, I will say here, that is strange to me. But looking at the reflection, the path traced reflection on the ground here at 1080p DLDSR 1.78 DLAA and 1080p DLAA, for some reason, right here, if you look at this wire, it's significantly more stable here than over here. Here it looks blurry, but it also kind of looks like see-through or as if it's shaking really, really fast. And that shows when you're just watching through it. Different frames show the same thing when compared. Like, yeah, it still has that thing throughout it, which is interesting. All right, we're going to come up to that same point. If we look at this mattress here, not too much of a difference, maybe just a little bit more detail. This one has some more contrast with the divots, but you never know. We come to here. That's where this comes into play, and I believe, yes, it is definitely sharper. You're definitely able to make out the lines in between each of the barbs in this way easier in the DLDSR. Once you get to this point, it just makes it look finer, right? This one's blurrier. This one it looks like a smaller thing, right? They each look like strands that are, finer. These ones make them look more chunky, and while also preserving the detail better. That could be due to rendering things. Oh, let's see. Go back here, hit play, pause here. And yeah, they end up looking very similar here. Although I will say I think the DLAA image might have a little more contrast. Although I will say there was something weird with my recording with the DLDSR mode. Something about my capture setup did not enjoy DLDSR that much. But yeah, the trees definitely looking a little bit better. There's also that, hold on, is that back a little bit further? There's this fan that I believe is spinning, yes. And yeah, it looks pretty much the same on both. Let's look at this building here. Pretty much the same there, pretty much the same there. The trees look pretty much the same, although maybe a little bit sharper on the DLDSR image around certain fraying areas, like around here and here, right? It looks a little bit better on the DLDSR image. Apart from that, there's not a ton of difference at all, I would say. And that's what you'll know. In a lot of occasions, you're not even going to notice it. I didn't notice it enough for me to want to enable it. That was the thing. And yeah, the color grabbing is the issue with the recording, not with DLDSR. Do not worry about that. We're just looking at Fidelity. Here, yeah, there's not much of a difference in this portion. Maybe a little bit more detail on the windows in the back. But again, you're limited to 1080p. You are limited to 1080p regardless, right? Because DLDSR really is rendering it higher, but then still displaying at 1080p. And so that's what you're stuck with regardless. It's just a better anti-aliasing method, pretty much is what it ends up being. But yeah, that's pretty much it for 1.78. Right here, this is the same thing actually, but with DLSS quality enabled, right? So let's see here. This is with DLSS quality, which is rendering below 1080p and then upscaling to 1.78 DLDSR and then displaying at 1080p using DLDSR. And what I've noticed is these look fixed, right? This looks pretty much the same on both. The lights up there, which is interesting. The thing here looks basically the same on both, right? This thing here, if not a little bit sharper on the right side with DLDSR 1.78 quality. And you look here, this looks sharper. This light back here looks sharper. These look a little bit sharper on there. Let's go back to the divots in the floor. Let's go here. And it looks pretty much the same, honestly. It looks pretty much the same with the divots in the floor. Around here, though, yeah, pretty much the same. I think it's keeping about the same amount of detail there. Here, I believe just the washed out colors on the right side is making it difficult to see here, but that I do believe is pretty much the same, while also performing better, which is very nice. And we're back here looking at this sign up here. It looks pretty much the same, maybe a tiny bit sharper. No, it's pretty much the same. I would say this is very, very close. Okay, so I will say, though, that the image, the graffiti on the bar, again, I think is noticeably sharper on the right side. Like, noticeably sharper and nicer to my eye. The bottle looks clearer, less smeary, looks more clear. In general, these lines here in the floor, right where I think this is a carpet or some sort of thing on the floor. You see these lines here, there, that go along the edge? They are far more muted and like non-existent here on the DLA 1080p. So I would say that this is, like, to my eye, this looks like there's more detail. The bricks here look sharper, more detailed. The drinks and the shelves back here look more detailed. Overall, if I were to choose one of these for just visual fidelity, I'd probably choose the one on the right. And it's rendering at a lower resolution than 1080p DLAA is, which is interesting. Very, very interesting. It's performing better, looks better. What a great technology to use, at least in this occasion. Let's see. I want to look at this door. This door looks fine. Bricks look a little bit more like blurry on the left side. And this wire looks more blurry. Exit sign, pretty much the same. Maybe a tiny bit more blurry on the left side. Right side, these details here look a little sharper. Overall, yeah, this newspaper looks sharper on the right. And this design here looks sharper on the right, which is crazy. This is with DLSS enabled, so you're not losing much. Like, you're not losing much at all. Let's look at this grate here. Looks pretty much the same on both, honestly. In this occasion, this might be a little bit sharper. By the way, there is frame tearing. When we're watching through this, there will be frame tearing because the capture will include that. And if you're on YouTube, there's going to also be low bitrate issues. So you might not be seeing all the things that are actually there. So I apologize for that, but that is just the case when it comes to YouTube and their platform. But you can also, Daniel Owen likes to say this a lot. I know, I'm totally cheating. I'm just stealing. This is practically theft, guys. It's all your fault. Anyway, if you're on a mobile device, you can pinch to zoom right onto the video, so that might help you see things. If you look here, look at the thing here, just the graffiti in the wall. The text here, I mean, this also might be more smoky, but it looks like the smoke is pretty much in the same position. It shouldn't be as blurry as it is. But look at that. This is way more pronounced and sharper. The bed is sharper. Overall, I think I would prefer the image on the right if it wasn't for the fact that it's more washed out because of the recording. But yeah, that's very nice. And it seems that running with quality DLSS has actually fixed that issue with the wire here and the reflection. It actually looks better on the right side than the left side now. So wow, that's really nice. Honestly, that is really nice. And look, these look a little better. These look a little better. In general, I am more biased towards sharp images though. Some people might not prefer the just sharpness, might think it's over sharpened. Oh my. Looks like there's far more detail. That's just nice. That's nice. And if you look here, I think it's keeping about the same amount here. Yeah, that's about the same amount of detail here where we have this coming in. Yep, so here I think they look pretty similar. This one has more of a line in between each of them. This one has like not really a line. They look like they're kind of just floating dots. This one seems they're more connected. Yeah, this one, there's definitely more of a thicker line in between each of them. But that might, again, just be the way it renders these type of things at lower resolutions. Because technically, the quality mode at DLDSR 1.78 is a lower resolution than 1080p DLAA is running at. So it could just be the way they render those type of things at lower resolution. Here we go. These fans back here start spinning up. They look fine, pretty same. Text is a little bit sharper on the right side. Trees look pretty much the same, just a little sharper on the right side. Yeah, okay. Yeah, and that's it. Let's see, this is DLDSR 2.25, right, against 1080p. Let's look at those divots on the floor in the beginning here. And if we look here, I don't know why, but these look pretty similar right now. Usually the divots are definitely more pronounced, but I'm not seeing that as much here, which is weird. I wonder if I got everything set up right. Anyway, no, this back here does look sharper on the right side. Just a little bit. The bottle here, these bottles are the same. I'd say that the bottle is sharper, definitely sharper on that side. This back here is far more clear, although I feel like there's slight differences in lighting. And here again, let's look up here. It's sharper on the right. I don't think this is as much of a so here's the thing. You're down at 30 FPS now. You have halved your frames. This is running at a little above 1440p. 1.78 DLDSR is 1440p, and this runs at a little bit above it. And what I would say really is, okay, this is not a grid anymore, right? Which is what appears on the 1080p image. But for some reason, the higher resolution you go, the more it does this, which is interesting. I don't know why that's the case. But anyway, what I would say is that I don't think that this justifies this performance hit nearly as much as the 1.78 did, because this looks pretty much the same as the 1.78. And you're losing far more performance. Maybe at quality DLSS, it'll make up for that, but it probably won't. It'll probably be running closer to 1080p or maybe even just 1080p at that mode. But then let's go back. Well, okay, this is interesting because over here, right? Okay, that's really interesting, actually. Right here is on the left side. These just look like arrows that move that are on the floor. Right? But for some reason over here on the right side, you can kind of see lines in between all of them that you can't see over here, which is suggesting that it's a screen. This is a screen down here. Obviously, it's a screen in the game, but it's here you can actually make out the, like, it wouldn't be scan lines. It'd be the kind of screen door-ish type thing. I guess it could be scan line. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I'm not going to get into all that. I'm not versed enough in that. But anyway, yeah, no, look here though. For some reason, this looks blurrier than this. And honestly, this might be down to the fact that I had to use, I just used a preset. I used the Ray Tracing Overdrive preset at all these things. So this could be motion blur kicking in. And at lower frame rates, motion blur might just be more, obvious. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And yeah, so here we go. And then there's these divots. For some reason, they aren't better represented. And I think this might be motion blur. This might be motion blur. This is about the same in both. This one looks sharper. Exit signs, pretty much the same. Over here, pretty much the same, maybe a tiny bit sharper over here. The graffiti here is definitely sharper on the right side, especially the I Heart Night City. I Heart Night City. I almost said New York. That's crazy. I feel like this one's more disappointing. That's the thing. I feel like this is far more disappointing than 1.78 was. 1.78 was far more interesting, I think. And that might just be due to motion blur, really. Here again, we do see a far more sharp image back there. The bed seems a little more clear. And again, I think that's reappeared. But I'm starting to think that that might also be motion blur as well. Yeah, okay. So it's back, right? The blurriness here. And the thing I've noticed so far is I think it might just be due to the frame rate being low. Really, it might be due to the frame rate being low that it's like this. And so there we go. Yeah, that's the difference. I don't know why it's blurry on the right. It might just be motion blur at low frames. So in future videos, I think I'll disable motion blur for sure. This is definitely sharper. Back here, these grates have a little more detail. These ones kind of look more like holes in the floor. These ones look more detailed. Apart from that, not much going on, honestly. These look a little bit finer than over here. But honestly, yeah, not much of a difference, to be honest. And really, this might just be my fault due to leaving motion blur on. Okay, if you look, so this is okay, this part, the camera is moving less. Okay, let's hold on. Let me go back here. Right, the camera, once it reaches the little bit of the end here, right, the camera's moving far less right here. And you can definitely tell that the text here, right here, is sharper on the right, for sure. These poles seem a little clearer. There's more detail on that bridge. It looks less flat. And apart from that, these trees might be a little bit more detailed, a little less grungy. And yeah, still, let's continue. Let's do quality. This will pretty much fix the FPS issue, so this will be more accurate, I think. And yeah, you can definitely tell there's more detail here now. Yeah, it goes further back with keeping those divots, which is interesting. It's actually kind of interesting. I think this is rendering at about the same resolution as 1080p now, and then running that upscaling up and then downscaling, right? So it's running about the same, a little bit slower. Again, sorry for the colors being a little washed out on that side. But yeah, it looks pretty much the same, maybe just a little bit more detail. Yeah, a little bit sharper on the bottles here for sure, like we were seeing previously. And here, up here, this is kind of jarbled, honestly. Although it might be trying to be a little bit clearer about what's up there. Maybe, but it looks more jarbled. These look pretty much the same up here. They look identical. This sign might be a little bit sharper. These lights are a little bit sharper on the right. And here, it's sharper on the right, maybe a tiny bit. It looks pretty same. Maybe a little bit more detail on the bricks here. You can see the lines in the screen down here again, which is cool. The floor mat seems to have more detail on the right. And yeah, the graffiti is better. It is better, especially this one here seems to be clearer, and this one here. And then those bottles, again, those bottles are definitely clearer on the right. Coming out here, you see the mattress again. It's definitely sharper on the right. And again, you can see that is gone. The artifact and the reflection. I really think that was motion blur, I'm going to be honest. Next time, I'm going to turn that off, I think. Presets give you like a more standard thing, but as long as I do that and then just turn the motion blur off, I think we'll be safe. These seem to be coming in at about the same time. Looking here, yeah, it's pretty much the same. Yeah, it's pretty identical. This one might be a little bit more like defined, but I still think it's pretty much the same. The cracks in the asphalt is interesting. I hadn't seen that before, but the cracks in the asphalt definitely seem to be more obvious on the right side, like more defined, which is nice. Less blurry. I like it. It makes it look like it's a higher resolution just because of the detail in it, being clearer. This one just looks blurry to me. Let's see that. Text over here is a little bit clearer on the right side. Windows a little bit more sharp. Pretty much the same detail on the bridge, but what I noticed is that the detail that is present is a little bit clearer. Apart from that, it's pretty much the same. This one I probably wouldn't recommend as much. Here's the thing. The thing about the 1.78 DLSS quality is that you're gaining performance and then also gaining a little bit of clarity. And that's what makes it so nice. It's much better than 1080p quality. So that was 1080p, right? That's 1080p. What does this look like at 1440p though? So what's really the difference there? Let's see. Let's see. This might be where I noticed more of the difference in the floor. This stuff here looks pretty much the same on the foreground, but this background where there's that great stuff there, although it might just be path tracing rendering in. So it's interesting. I'd never noticed this before, but this here again, this is DLSS quality, so it's rendering at like 960p. This is a little more choppy. They're like more of a grid. And then here on the left side where it's rendering at 1440p, you have this like much finer, like the grid isn't actually a grid, which is very funny to me. Looking pretty similar, very similar. If anything, that's weird. Yeah, it looks pretty much the same, honestly, on both sides. Very much the same here. See if we can see those lines in the, yeah, you can see those lines in the screens on both sides, although this one's a little bit more all over the place, but it's definitely the lines here. The floor, you got those lines. Up here, it's pretty much the same defined thing there. Yeah, these look pretty much the same, honestly. Yeah, DLSS quality at 1440p is pretty amazing. And you're gaining frames, like quite a few. Let's see when this comes in. Pretty much the same time on both sides. This one, the lines look a little thicker. Let's look for detail in the asphalt. It's pretty much the same on both sides. The grates back here are more definitively like lines going up and down on this side. And on this side, kind of just is like a haze. So you are losing detail using quality instead of DLAA. But that's, of course, you're running at a lower resolution, so there's only so much black magic in DLSS. And yeah, they look very similar. Very similar. This is just our base, our ground level. DLAA versus DLSS quality. It looks pretty similar, honestly. Very, very similar. And here's where it gets interesting. I mean, okay, so again, this is 1440p path tracing on the left, and this is DLDSR 1.78, which is lower than 4K, I believe. Not quite 4K. But DLAA path traced and it's getting those frames, right? So that's going to be something to keep in mind. The floor looks very similar. The drink here looks very similar, very, very similar. Honestly, okay, back here on the wall back there, I think there's more detail. On the right, very minor though, very minor. And we look here. That looks very similar to me. I'm not seeing much of a difference, I'm going to be honest. This is where I think, at 1440p, I just don't know, man. I don't know if this is worth it. I really don't. Because I'm not seeing much of a difference at all versus DLAA. So when it'll get interesting, we'll look at the DLSS results at 1.78, because that'll be the interesting part, right? But at DLAA on both resolutions, I'm not seeing much of a difference. All right, these graffiti, right? The graffiti here a little bit sharper on the right, I think. The wall back here is definitely sharper on the right. Bottle, maybe not at all. You can see. Okay, so this is interesting. You are already able to see the screen effect on the right side on that thing when you're not able to see it yet on the left side. So that's interesting. Also, you're able to see, well, actually, no, those look pretty much the same. The thing on the mat here looks pretty much the same on both sides. The bottles, you know, a little bit sharper in some of the fine details back there, very fine details, but not really much of a difference at all, honestly. Another thing, I think this has to do with the smoke effects, but the star isn't noticeable right now on the right side. I think that's just smoke effects. Yeah, we get past the smoke. Let's look at this here. Looks pretty much the same. Again, motion blur could be smearing a little bit more on the right side, maybe. You can see the screen effect on both. Looks pretty much the same on both at this point. Again, this is going to have to do with even finer details than at 1080p is when we're going to start to notice differences, because the resolution is just higher in general. So we got to look further back, more far away, in order to see any differences. Pausing here. Looks identical. It's so tiny. So tiny in this 1.78. Okay. 1.78 DSR quality. DLSS quality. Let's look at the floor. Pretty much the same. Pretty much the same. Up here, you're losing some here. I don't know why it does that sometimes, though. I'm just not seeing a lot of benefit. Okay, so that's the thing. In this mode, you're running at a higher frame rate, and still technically, it does look a tiny bit sharper to me. Here looks a tiny bit sharper, but it's also smokier over here. Over here, the graffiti looks a little bit sharper. The matte here looks pretty much the same. You're able to see that screen effect here. For some reason, you're not able to see the screen effect yet over there, but the screen effect is already in over here. This here, right there, looks sharper right there on the right side, but that could also be due to smoke effects or the like. Let me see this guy's chain here. It looks sharper to me on the right side. The bottle, pretty much the same on both. And these look pretty much the same to me, although this one maybe looks a little less blurry than on this side. And I think that might just be due to motion blur. It's very similar, very, very similar. And I mean, again, you're comparing against DLAA, so it's still impressive for sure, for sure. Over here, yep. I think it looks pretty much the same. When do those wires appear? Start to appear here and here. Yep, they're appearing about the same time. It's interesting because I think the grates are appearing at about the same time. A little bit more clearly on this side. But, oh no, not even. I think it looks pretty much the same on both. Yeah, it looks pretty much the same on both. Which, again, 1.78 DLSS quality is a lower resolution than 1440p DLAA. Yay, performance, free performance. Even if it looks identical. Even if it looks identical, you're winning. Right? So, there's that. And, yep, that's maybe a tiny bit sharper. Not really noticeable at all. Here, no. It looks the same. It looks identical. I feel like I'm making stuff up now. I'm not able to see anything different now. These all look the same, dude. And again, you are gaining performance, right? And this is DLAA on the right and DLAA on the left. The right is 2.25 DLDSR, which is rendering at 4K, excuse me. So let's look at these divots on the floor. They're the same. They're the same divots on the floor. Looking here, pretty much the same. Looking back there. Okay, so I don't know if it's just smoke effects, but that is clearly more detailed in the back on the billboard in the back. This great thing here, obvious more detailed on the right. Definitely more detailed. The bottle's pretty much the same because they're on the foreground pretty much. Very similar. Now you're at a resolution where this will never be the grid anymore. I think at these resolutions, you're more limited by the fact that you're on a 1440p screen, and that can only display so much. You're not saving as much detail, I think, than you were at 1080p. I think you might be starting to maybe sort of see the effect there. Oh, look here. Those dots, the grid's back on the left side. When on the right side, it's not yet, which is interesting. Or it's still just that. I don't know why that happens. I have no clue why that happens. But there are those now on that side. When there's not on the right, it seems to correlate directly to your resolution. This can show the screen effect already. This is not showing the screen effect yet. The matte here actually looks like identical. Well, no, it actually, I think, is showing easier on this side. The things here, pretty much the same. Maybe a tiny bit sharper on the right, like microtesimally small amount sharper. Guy, pretty much the same. Not noticing any real difference. Let's see when we start to see the screen effect over here, because I'm not seeing it yet. It's over here. It's been here for a while. There you go. Now we're seeing the screen effect, now that we're facing more directly on it. Yeah, this was showing the screen effect way before, which is nice. These are sharper on the right. These slats there are sharper on the right. I think the smoke is making this blurry. I think that might have been what was happening earlier too, so that's something to keep in mind. It's so similar, but there's also the fact that it's a lower frame rate, which is impacting motion blur, I believe, so it's blurrier on some things. All right, when do we start seeing them? All right, so over here, by now, this one's showing both the dots and the lines in between in some places. Well, this one is only showing the dots, so that is a better rendering here. Let's see, this is a little sharper. Over here in these, you're already able to see more of the detail. Very minor, very minor, but it is there. And there we go. It looks practically the same. This is a little sharper, I think, the screen, or it's like practically identical. I don't know. That's like identical. Like I cannot tell. Yeah, it's so hard to tell. I think you're really being limited by the fact that it's 1440p. You're not going to gain as much because you're already at a high resolution.
Hey, so I had originally recorded this incorrectly, so I'm instead having to do a voiceover during editing, which is unfortunate. But really what I noticed in this one was the fact that it looked pretty much the same. This one does look pretty much the same as just DLDSR 2.25 at DLAA, which in turn means that it did look better to me than 1440p DLAA. The only thing is you are losing performance. Instead of being in the high 40s, we are in the mid 40s. It's just a little bit lower performance than 1440p DLAA. And here, if you look in the puddle, you can pause it if you want. There, it looks pretty much identical. Over here, in general, it looks pretty much identical everywhere. There are times where it does end up looking a little bit sharper or where more detail is resolved, which is nice. But overall, it's pretty much the same thing. And yeah, that's basically it for this one. As it loops around here, you can look at the sign on the wall over there. It looks pretty much the same. And yeah, here's our performance.
So my final thoughts when it comes to just the overall visual quality to my eyes is if I was using either DLDSR or not DLDSR, I'd probably not really notice much of a difference at 1440p. 1080p, I think I was noticing more of a difference between the two. I felt like it was more obvious in more of the elements, that it was clearer and easier to see. However, in 1440p, it just does not seem to be terribly worth it. But you are technically, I believe, just through my eyes, which are faulty human eyes, and my opinion. But I believe to my eyes at 1440p with DLSS on, using DLDSR, so it's running at a higher resolution than 1440p, I think it looked better. And it also ran better than DLAA. So if you got a nice system and you want to push it and you're only on a 1440p screen, then it might be worth it, but you're not really gaining a lot, and you could honestly just use 1440p quality DLSS, which looks amazing, and gain a lot of performance, right? Be in the 80s with path tracing, with a 5080 at least, that's my system. And then you are, smooth sailing, and it'll look great. It'll feel even better than any of the other options. And frame gen exists with path tracing, so that's nice to use with those type of situations once you're at a nice frame rate. So that's probably what I do. That's what I had been doing. DLDSR, I never found it enough better than just using DLSS quality at 1440p and all that to make it worthwhile for me. However, technically, you could probably just use balanced mode or performance mode at 4K, DLDSR or whatever, and be like smooth sailing and have a great time. And it would look better than what I was using probably. And you know what? That would be awesome. So you can do that. That's 100% an option. But yeah, overall, for me, okay, so it's just a lot of extra steps. It's a lot of extra steps, and if you're willing to put in that effort and do that, then you can do it and you will see benefits. But for me, I just don't see that benefit as much.
Alright, so now it's been a little bit of time, and we're going to go ahead and go over the results from our experiment here. At 1080p with DLDSR, we saw some interesting results. With native DLAA, we were getting about 70.43 frames per second at the end of our benchmark run, and so we set that as our baseline, and we gained about 65% when we switched to DLSS quality, which is to be expected. DLSS does do very well with giving you more frames. And then when we changed it to DLDSR 1.78, we lost about 35% of our performance, coming in at 65% at 45.61 frames per second. Now, you're losing a lot of performance by doing that, so it's really up to your discretion. I don't think it's necessarily worth that, but turning on DLSS is when it gets a little more interesting, and we're at DLDSR 1.78 quality, we actually are gaining 13% of our performance over DLAA at native, and in my opinion, it did end up looking a little bit better than DLAA. So that's where there's a sweet spot, right? That's a really nice place to be at. You can also use better levels of DLSS after that. You can go even further with DLSS to balanced or performance, something like that. And then also we have DLDSR 2.25 DLAA, which performed terribly and didn't really give you much benefit from that. It was about half the performance of the DLAA image. And then there was also DLDSR 2.25 quality, which looked better than DLAA, but I'm not sure it looked better enough to lose those frames, but it did perform about the same. So if you're looking for DLAA but better, the DLDSR 2.25 image with quality definitely provided that. Moving on over to our 1440p results, we saw some more interesting things here from our performance. Our baseline with native DLAA was 45.43 frames per second, and moving on to DLSS quality, we gained 78% performance just by turning on DLSS quality, which makes it come in at around 80 frames per second, which is pretty awesome. We averaged at 81.02, and that it looked pretty darn good, but again, it's DLSS, so you are losing a little bit of fidelity. Moving on to DLDSR 1.78, we lost nearly half, 41% of our performance, going from 45.43 to 27 frames per second by turning on to that. More than the other value we got from 1080p's DLDSR 1.78. But then when we turned on quality DLSS, we were getting better performance from native DLAA while also having it look a little bit better in my opinion. But that, again, comes down to personal preference. I think it resolved more detail, but that may not actually be the case. Could be due to motion blur issues or many other things. It ended up looking better to my eye, but that you're gaining performance and it's looking better, so that is a great place to be. And then DLDSR 2.25 DLAA, you're losing like all of your performance. A little over half of your performance is gone, and you're at 21.85 FPS. It doesn't look much better than DLDSR 1.78 DLAA, so it just seems totally worthless to me. And then you have DLDSR 2.25 quality, which looks better than all of the rest, basically, except for DLDSR 2.25 DLA. But this is, again, diminishing returns like crazy. You're stuck to a 1440p screen to begin with, so you're not really seeing much of a difference. You had to really pixel peep to see anything, and even then, it could be placebo, which is something you always keep in mind with this type of discussion. But then again, it's running about the same as DLAA while also, to my eye, looking better. So there is an argument to be had that this is basically DLAA but better. So yeah, there's that. Hey guys, realize I forgot to record an outro, so I thought I'd just do it like this because I don't want to have to set up my entire camera again. Oh my, this was a lot for one video. It took me a long time. I had over an hour of video to parse through and edit, so got it down to a decent-ish time. But I would just like to thank you guys for watching. It means a lot. We are super close to 1K. This is a little bit more in-depth and a lot more benchmarking than I've done before. So I'm hoping to do more benchmarking like this in the future, but maybe a little bit more put together in a more decent way. This one is a little bit fumbly because I'm trying to get into the usage of it. So hopefully in the future this can improve greatly. Looking forward. But yeah, once again, thank you guys for watching it. It means a lot. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.